want you to think of these three things and think about what they might have in common. Muscle contractions, maintaining and building strong bones, and prevention of fractures. If you said calcium and vitamin D, you're right. There are a lot of different nutrients that play a role in building strong bones, but today we're only going to be focusing on these two nutrients. I want you to think of calcium and vitamin D as teammates. They work together to make sure that our body can use both of them. Vitamin D takes the calcium from the food that we eat and takes it from our digestive tract. From there, it brings it into our bloodstream and delivers it throughout our body wherever it's needed. Did you know that our bones are living organs? Every single day, calcium is being deposited and pulled from our bones. This is one of the reasons why it's important for you to make sure that you're reaching your recommendations for calcium and vitamin D every single day. When we hit the age of 30, it's difficult for our body to maintain the stores of calcium that it once did. Our bone mass is also declining. Think about, as we age, how is this going to affect us if we're not getting enough calcium and vitamin D in our diet? So what happens when we don't get enough calcium and vitamin D in our diet? Well, first off, our muscles can't function as well. So what I want you to think about is a muscle contraction. So we're not able to lift heavy weights if we're not getting enough calcium. When it comes to our bones, there's a greater likeliness that we'll break or fracture a bone if we're not getting enough calcium and vitamin D in our diet. Ever hear of osteoporosis? Osteoporosis is a disease where we have weak and brittle bone, and there's a greater likeliness for us to fracture and break our bones because of this. We generally think of an older individual as someone as having osteoporosis. However, it's important to remember that osteoporosis does not discriminate, and it doesn't matter what age we are or whether we're male or female. We can get osteoporosis if we're not taking the right steps. And there are a couple of things that you can do to prevent osteoporosis. Some of these things might be getting the right recommendations every day in your diet for both calcium and vitamin D, which we'll talk about shortly. Another way is participating in weight-bearing exercises. So an example of a weight-bearing exercise would be something like soccer, playing basketball, doing jumping jacks, running, jumping rope, or doing weightlifting. So when it comes to these exercises, I want you to think about gravity first. So gravity is keeping us on the ground, so we're not floating around, and that's adding a little bit of pressure already onto our body. When we do weight-bearing exercises, this is adding even more pressure to our body, and this is a great thing when it comes to building strong bones. So remember, osteoporosis is preventable, we just have to take the right steps. I want to show you a couple of examples of what healthy versus unhealthy bone looks like. In this first example, I want you to take a look at our healthy bone. You'll notice that it is a little porous. And you'll take a look at our unhealthy bone, which is a lot more porous. You'll notice that our healthy bone, because there's less pores in there, it's a lot sturdier. And a better way for us to be able to visually see this is moving our paper back and forth. And you'll notice that the white sheet of paper is a little more flimsy, indicating our weaker bone. You can also see that by simply bending it. It's a lot more flimsy than our healthy bone. Because it's more flimsy, because there's more pores in it and it's more fragile, there's a greater likeliness for us to fracture or break that bone versus our healthy bone. Now that I know the importance of calcium in my diet, how much should I strive for? The amount of calcium that you need in your diet is really going to depend on your age. For those individuals that are 14 to 18 years old, you should be striving for 1,300 milligrams a day. When it comes to my plate, what does that look like? My plate recommends that we get 3 cups of dairy every day. What foods do you think of when you think of ways to get calcium from the foods that you eat? If you're like most of us, you're probably thinking of things like milk and cheese. These come from the dairy food group. There are, however, other food items that come from other categories of my plate where we can find our calcium. Ever hear the word fortified? All this means is that we're adding the nutrient into a food where it's not naturally occurring. Grain products naturally lack calcium. Many cereals are now fortified with calcium and vitamin D. But be sure to check the food labels to identify the serving size and the amount of calcium. When it comes to the protein food groups, Items such as chicken, beef, and pork lack calcium. But the great news is that certain fish like salmon and canned seafood will commonly have bone or crushed bone incorporated. By doing this, it helps to preserve the calcium content. Even if you don't eat meat, beans are another great way to get calcium. Fruits naturally lack calcium, but calcium fortified orange juice and other 100% fruit juices exist. Fortified 100% juices are an excellent option for those individuals that cannot consume dairy products or that dislike milk. Dark green veggies such as broccoli, kale, and spinach contain calcium. What about vitamin D? How much should I be striving for? Remember, vitamin D is needed to help the body absorb calcium in the digestive tract. It also works with calcium to promote bone formation and mineralization. The recommendation for individuals 70 years and younger is 15 micrograms. I know vitamin D is important for the absorption of calcium, so what are some good sources of vitamin D? The easiest way is by drinking milk, which is fortified with vitamin D. Other ways to get vitamin D include fortified cereals, fortified orange juice, fortified soy beverages, fish such as salmon, halibut, herring, tuna, oysters, or shrimp. Vitamin D can also be synthesized from sunlight. It's synthesized in the skin following direct exposure to the sun. All it takes is 10 to 15 minutes of exposure 2 to 3 times a week. It is important to note, though, that certain factors can affect the body's ability to make vitamin D. These include the season, time of day, skin melanin content, length of day, cloud cover or smog, and sunscreen. The food label is always a great place to learn about the food and drinks you consume. The updated food label includes both vitamin D and calcium and lists the amounts provided in one serving as well as the percent daily value for both nutrients. You want to aim for 100% the daily value for all vitamins and minerals listed per day. The percent daily value is based on recommendations for most individuals. Do you know what lactose intolerance is? Do you know somebody or are you dealing with lactose intolerance? Lactose is a naturally occurring sugar found in milk. Lactose intolerance means that the body cannot break down this sugar. Non-dairy foods such as soy, dark green veggies, or fortified foods and products can be helpful to those that are lactose intolerant. Remember, if you or someone you know is dealing with lactose intolerance or just doesn't like to drink milk, there are other options. You can try to choose smaller portions of dairy. Maybe eat dairy in combination in meals, as this could help to ease any discomfort. Choosing hard cheeses or yogurt instead of milk can help, as these items often contain the enzyme lactase, which is needed to digest lactose. Choosing products such as lactose-free milks, soy beverages, or fortified milk alternatives and cheeses can be a great source of calcium without the discomfort. The amount of dairy or lactose that an individual can consume is going to depend on the severity of the intolerance. To see if you're getting enough calcium every day, use the sources of calcium chart to see if you're getting enough calcium every day. You can use this information to complete the activity above. Under each mealtime, list the food item, milligrams of calcium listed on the chart, as well as percent daily value for each serving. If you consume more than one serving of that item, be sure to increase the amounts to reflect that amount. When you finish filling out a full day, calculate the totals below. Remember, individuals 14 to 18 years old should strive for 1,300 milligrams of calcium per day. You can also use websites such as myplate.gov to learn more about dairy or even to take a quiz.